Hey YouTube, friendly neighbor Game Master Zach Hall here. Quick little video. I've kind of had this idea bouncing around in my head for a couple days. Decided just to try get it out. Might be useful to you. Might not. Might be here. Be aware of my channel from the OGL mess that Wizards of the Coast caused that set a lot of people out to stumble upon and find and start looking into Pathfinder 2nd Edition as a D20 alternative for their high medieval fantasy gaming. And I think that's amazing. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is great. It is what I am currently running for my friends and gaming group, and we're having a blast figuring out the system for me and my partner that's transitioning from 5th edition and figuring out all the ways that Pathfinder improves upon and changes the system and rules that we already love and the ones that we don't. And for most of the gaming group, it's their first ever tabletop role-playing game. We're having a lot of fun playing a updated Rise of the Rune Lords AP. Really enjoying it so far, almost done with book 1, and it's going really well. If you're anything like me, I am a rule set guy. The rules do matter to me, and part of what I enjoy about the hobby is being able to learn and express my expertise or my knowledge of the system in some way at the table. That doesn't mean that I like playing overpowered stuff. It doesn't mean that I look up and trying to always create an optimized build for a character or a encounter, but it does mean that I do like how the rules work and like how they interact and like making intelligent decisions that are informed by roleplay. So a lot of, I saw a lot of conversations about, going out and discovering new rule sets to try and use during the whole Wizards of the Coast OGL debacle. And it's something I do kind of in my spare time anyway. And so I kind of wanted to list out 3 rule systems that I am already really like or that I am getting into, with the caveat that for most of these, I have not run a ton of games. This is mainly just back of napkin theory crafting, and does a rule set immediately kind of grab me? Do I immediately kind of see what it's trying to achieve? That's a big part to me. Like if I have to dig around and really kind of 100 pages to understand the core concept of what a rule set's providing, that's not great for a great experience for anybody, and not what I'm looking for. So here's 3 rule sets that I've really enjoyed reading about and kind of trying to experience, and 3 games that I'm looking forward to running in the future. The first one is one that I've actually talked about here on the channel a little bit when I did a preview of the Expanse RPG. Big umbrella, it uses the Modern Age AGE system from Green Ronin Publishing. There's a Modern Age, and I forget if they call it Fantasy Age. I believe they do. It's a really interesting dice rolling mechanic. It's a very structured but well thought out character creation process, and doesn't really change a ton of what I understand and enjoy about the role-playing experience. Really, it's just changing a little bit of the math and the dice mechanics, but there's still a very separate narrative play versus an encounter play, similar to what we enjoy and experience in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. It's just changing up the game, like the dice mechanic, and a couple of cool little quirks about the system that I enjoy. Part of that main dice mechanic is the drama dice, which, depending on the type of roll that you're making and what you actually roll on the dice, can empower special abilities like stunts and can help to break ties, etc. It's something really interesting. I think it pairs really well with the setting of the Expanse. Though I think my second one actually might fit better, and I've contemplated trying to hack together something to see if I could make it work. The second one that I really like, and I think I do enjoy more than Modern Age, is the Modifius 2D20 system. It powers all of Modifius's IP TTRPGs, like their whole hobby line. I experience it and have engaged with it the most through their Star Trek officially licensed game, Star Trek Adventures. It's a very good tabletop role-playing game, and it's very good for Star Trek, the way that they have constructed it out. But earlier last year, Modifius did what I think is great, and they released a 2D20 SRD that anybody could go out and use and either put together hacks or put together like their own custom setting and use the Modifius 2D20 system instead of dropping in, other classic SRDs. Pathfinder, D&D among them. Probably Powered by the Apocalypse is probably like one of the other powered, one of the most, and then upcoming one is, or up and coming, even though it's been around for a long time, it's Blades in the Dark or Forged in the Dark. Regardless, sidetracked. Modifius 2D20 system, I really like it. I really like how the system plays out, how the dice mechanic works. By really, you still get to use all the dice that you like. So a downside of the modern age is that it doesn't use D20s. There might be some weird one-off rolls that might incorporate a D20, but you're mainly rolling 6-sided dice, which for people coming from D20 based systems, I'm not a dice goblin necessarily, but I do have my favorites, and I have built up a small dice collection and like using my D20s. So ditching those by the wayside in order to play modern age does feel bad a little bit. You're still using D20s. In fact, you're using multiple D20s when playing Modifius 2D20, and it flips a lot of things on its head. It uses dice pool mechanics, but it's still using D20s that you're really familiar with and enjoy rolling. And you're actually shooting for lower scores in 2D20 than higher scores, which I like. It's just something a little different. And even something simple as you have a range from 1 to 20, and there's a DC that you're trying to get under, or a target number, I think is the terminology used by the 2D20 system. But it operates exactly like a DC in Pathfinder or D&D, but you're shooting to go under it. And that DC is often determined by your own personal skill sets. So during character creation, you're adding points to skills, and the bigger number the more talented you are in specific areas, the easier it's going to be to succeed at those things without having to necessarily keep track of modifiers. You're not giving yourself a modifier to add to a dice roll. You're changing the target number based on how good you are at. So it really does kind of flip the 2D20, so the 2D20 system really does flip a lot from the D20 system kind of on its head while feeling pretty familiar. So by flipping some of the basics on its head, it does trick your brain into knowing and thinking, this is a brand new system that I need to learn to engage with, that I need to kind of figure out the mechanics behind, without a lot of the math being kind of hidden and separated out by using modifiers, proficiency scores, and things like that. I really, really like the Modifius 2D20 system. I have enjoyed watching engaging with some Star Trek Adventure actual plays that kind of show you how it all works. And there's multiple IPs that use the Modifius 2D20 system, so check out Modifius's website if Star Trek isn't necessarily your bag, but maybe there's something else that I think is their other big one that uses 2D20. So if Conan the Barbarian in that universe is more your speed than Star Trek, absolutely check it out. But if you're just interested in the rule set without necessarily like a default setting or the world that things are living on, definitely check out the Modifius 2D20 SRD, now available online. The third is one I've actually ran games before in, and is very different than the other two systems I've mentioned, where they are still, I hesitate to say crunchy, because crunchy involves, I think, gets a bad rep first of all, from players who, especially a certain audience coming from 5th edition, almost sees the rules as getting in the way of their fun. And seems like the main point there is to goof off with friends and tell a story. And the rules are most of the time getting in the way of the story instead of the way the story is being told and facilitated. And crunch has become kind of a dirty word. So I hesitate to say that either the modern age or 2D20 systems are crunchy, because they both have less math than Pathfinder 2nd. There's less to keep track of, but the system does matter. You are rewarded in the system by figuring out the system well and performing several wide option, like optimized choices made in the mechanic. The third one that I have run the most and enjoy the most, I would say, is not that. It really is more at its base level a storytelling game that uses dice. It really is more of a storytelling game that introduces dice in moments of randomness, but the way you succeed at the game, at the system, is not by having a better fundamental understanding of the system, but at being able to tell a better story and collaboratively telling that story with the rest of your players at the table and your GM. This is Fate from Evil Hat Publishing. Fate is the first non-D&D system that I ever really got into and read and played, mainly thanks to its IP version, the Dresden Files role-playing game. I don't actually love Dresden Files role-playing game in the Fate system because I'm a huge Dresden File nerd and have read all the books and watched the bad sci-fi television show and read most of the comics. And I've thought about that world a lot, and I don't think it necessarily succeeds at recreating the fiction of the books as well as it could, or a different system might. What Fate does really well is any kind of story, any kind of IP that you and your friends want to play in, there is a Fate can work for you and what you are attempting to do, as long as everybody at the table is there to be an active and engaged participant in telling a shared collaborative story. Fate often says that its characters are proactive and engaged, and often the people to run headfirst into the noise, into the fray when something goes wrong. Fate does not work very well for passive, behind-the-scenes characters, which I've seen that play out. I think that's true for all tabletop role-playing games. So I think it's good universal advice, especially true in Fate. Fate uses Fate die or fudge dice. They are 6-sided dice with 2 sides blank, 2 sides having a plus sign, 2 sides having a minus sign, and you roll a pool of dice, add them up, and they usually swing somewhere between like a -3 and a +3 at the extremes, and that's it. You add a modifier usually based on your skills. The skills can look very different depending on the type of game that you want to run, but the skill list is a really good place to start, and there's an easy toolkit there for you to be able to change, remove, or add in skills based on the type of game that you're running. I mentioned the Expanse before when talking about Modern Age. There's actually an incredible Fate space toolkit that is available, probably digitally only now, but it is a great, almost like a DLC for the Fate system that gives you a lot of options. And one of the options that they use as an example is extremely similar to the Expanse. Everything from how to incorporate people who are used to different gravity levels in their day-to-day life, to how do you create a sheet and like how do you stat out a spaceship, to how to fly and run said spaceship as a crew in the like darkness of a very realistic and physics-based space like it is in the Expanse, versus the hand-wavy spacefaring of soft sci-fi like Star Trek and space fantasy epics like Star Wars. Highly suggest Fate I think Fate is definitely more of a toolkit where it gives you all the tools that you need to create the game that you want without necessarily giving you a default, without giving a default setting, without giving you a default world to play in. So if you are coming from 5th edition as a big home brewer and enjoy tinkering, creating your own custom settings and adjusting the rule set to fit your new world, changing the character options that are available to your players based on the world you've created, Fate might be a really cool rule light, but can be made crunchier rule set for you. Hope this was helpful. Those are 3 rule sets that I've enjoyed reading and or playing and running and tinkering with outside of the traditional super popular D20 sphere. I'd love to hear what systems you're getting into outside of D&D and Pathfinder, whether it's something you've been playing for a long time or if it's something you've only been picked up in the past couple months after the OGL debacle. So would love to hear about that. Leave a comment and let me know. And if you're interested in more of content around those systems, especially the Modifius 2D20, which I don't think I've discussed here on the channel and really done a deep dive into, let me know in the comments. We'd be happy to figure something out and put together a video for y'all. So hope you have an amazing day. Catch you next time. Peace.